Order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, today we don't have a real busy agenda, but what we did do was we had mentioned previously, and I had spoken with Tommy Fields to bring the Baymen in to get a feel for some of their issues and concerns, and also with the cooperative extension relating to the oyster reefs they wanted to put in, so we can do a joint discussion on that. And also back before the end of the year, we had a meeting with some people from the Pilots Association, some things they wanted to do. This really isn't, this is more about, that discussion is going to be more about the airfield itself, what goes on there. Some of the neighbors had said they would like to just get a feel for, you know, what goes on over there and what, you know, the uses are. We're really not talking about the sewer project. We're trying very hard to move on and find another place for that. If you want to talk about that, we can, but there's really more to get a feel for what the airfield use is on the island and what they would like to see happen with it. So we'll start with Tommy Field. You want to come up and join us?
Yeah, I guess the main thing we wanted to discuss that we really want to get started is this, we want some sort of commercial harvester
Could you
permit.
can you give us just a feel for who's the Baymans? Who is it?
Well, Bayman, we're a bunch of group of guys that brought together, we came together, we volunteered to come together after the seagrass management thing happened. We decided we came together to kind of keep an eye on what's going on here and some hopefully have input on what's going on up here. The guys that meet, it's myself, John Catula, Kenny Clark, Wayne King, Stevie Lennox, and that's the main group of guys that meet. I'm in contact. We're all in contact with each other throughout the time, but it's not an official committee.
Right.
It's just a bunch of guys that meet and you know, try to have some sort of input on what's going on.
And there are a few more guys making a living.
There's actually, John, how many do you think there are? 10, 15 of us maybe? Commercial guys?
Yeah.
Full time. Yeah.
Yeah, about a dozen.
Yeah.
Maybe about a dozen
Some
full
full-time,
time.
some- Yeah, okay.
Well, during scallop season, when they're around, everybody's a commercial.
Right.
But year round, you have like Kenny Clark and his.
Yeah, there's maybe a
Sawyer.
dozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And our main thing is that we've had in the past, we have a problem with non-residents coming in and harvesting inside our waters.
Right.
It's not about one specific person
Mhm.
and it's not about one specific species either. It's,
Mhm.
you know, eel pots, crab pots, clams, all that stuff. And we
Mhm.
want to put something together. Southampton has done something. I don't know whether you were able to find that
Yeah.
paperwork. John really wanted to speak more to this particular thing than I did. But we want to, you know, we want to do something about it.
Right.
We want to start the conversation on that.
So how does it work now? I mean, I know
Right.
I get my shellfish license every year. But
That's what it is.
that's what everybody gets.
That's
Period.
all we have.
Right.
Yeah.
You want a commercial.
We want to set it up commercial because we believe that that would give us more specific towards residency.
Mhm.
And something that's important that should be noticed that, you know, the new lawyers brought up in the past is the domicile issue.
Mhm.
I want to read. This is on the back of our shellfish DEC license, our permit. That's got to be, you know, signed and affidavit. It's clearly states here, declaration of domicile for New York State resident permits and licenses. Pursuant to New York state law, I declare that I am domiciled within the state of New York and have maintained a fixed, permanent, and principal place of abode within the state of New York immediately prior to the time of filing this application, and will continue to maintain such a place of abode for the duration of this permit and or license. I understand that while I may have multiple residences, I can only have one true domicile. If my domicile should change, I will notify the department within 7 business days. and I must surrender my permit license if no longer domiciled in the state of New York.
So that's a DEC permit.
This is the DEC permit, yeah, and they will specify non-resident license
Right.
versus resident license.
Okay. And then
Um,
I'm looking at Southampton's, they have, you know, pretty much what we do, you proof driver's license or ID, a voter registration card, a deed or a tax bill. Although if you're renting, first of all, you have to have the local shellfish permit license. Oh, no, you have to have the New York State DEC license.
yeah, and that will
Commercial,
declare domicile.
right. And then you have
Yeah.
driver's license, rent receipt, canceled check, voter registration. Okay.
This, I just kind of pulled this out because this worked in the past. There was a long time, there was an issue with how to do this legally. Apparently, they did do it legally.
Mhm.
That's why we're using this as, I don't know,
Right.
quote unquote blueprint, if you will.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much that. I don't know, John, you want to add anything to that? That's really where we want to go with this. We need to,
John, come on up.
Yeah.
Is there an issue or is just something like a little bit of housekeeping? I can
There-
remember a long time ago, there was a guy that with
Mm.
the motor and he pretty much stripped everywhere of the steamers. I'm going back like 20 years.
Yeah, that wasn't a non-resident issue. That
Oh.
was
Okay.
that was different. Yes, there has been issues recently. And there will be in the future, especially at times when things are good.
Mhm.
People try to go where things are good. And this is nothing new to Southampton, East Hampton, Southold. They're all pretty much doing it. We're like the only, out of the 5 towns, we're the only one that doesn't have a separate commercial shellfish
Mhm.
license. So that'll give us protections and it doesn't, it should be something simple to do. I mean, it's mostly clerical. The fee can be a little bit different, just so it's distinguished different. It's not about making money
Right.
from it or anything. And it'll also let you guys know how many of us are commercially harvesting as opposed to recreational harvesting for controls.
So John, how do we define what you're commercially, do we have to be specific? Is it just general commercial fishing or? like, look
Well,
at
that's the other part.
Southampton.
That's the other part of it. The main gist of it is a shellfish license, but
Right.
it could be called a commercial harvester's license because we'd also like to form some kind of protections to other forms of commercial fishing and uses of the bay bottom. For example, somebody from another town came over here and then we're setting eel pots. Couldn't get rid of the guy.
Mhm.
Not that he was really causing a problem,
Yeah,
but anybody from any other town can come here. And if they have a New York State license, they're fishing legally, but they're on our town bottom. If I went to Southampton town and I started clamming, or if I set eel pots or went crabbing or set a gill net in Shinnecock Bay or whatever, I'd be ticketed or arrested or shot at within a half an hour.
Mhm.
We have no protections like
Right.
that. So that's what we're looking to do.
So I guess
And
the
it's-
question is, how specific do we want to
Right,
be?
how do
know,
you prove to us that you're?
Well, that
resident?
leads into the next thing that we really need to do is we need to sit down with the lawyer and go through our part of the town code that's shellfishing. Yeah, and go through it and update it. There's some old fashioned things in there that need to be taken out. And that needs to be updated.
Yeah.
For example, there's a paragraph in there about whelks. Years ago, whelks were pretty much worthless.
Right.
Mhm.
And the old timers would catch a whelk scalloping, and because they're a predator to shellfish, they would just throw them on the beach at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And there's actually, and it's still in there in the town code, you're supposed to keep the whelks and kill them. And now whelks are very,
Right.
very valuable. I make a substantial part of my income harvesting whelks, as do a couple of other of us on Shelter Island. And we did have an instance last summer where somebody was commercially harvesting whelks without a New York State whelk permit. You need a New York State whelk permit to harvest whelks.
Inside waters or outside?
Inside, and they were harvesting, commercial quantities. And the Bay Constables tried to ticket this person, and it got kicked out because this was in our town code. And it was like, it just messed up the whole thing. So, there's that's one example of a thing. So it needs to be updated. It just hasn't been updated. And
Probably.
there's a couple of other things. Years ago, you helped us with it. We did a bunch of we got bushels and bushels of clams from Flowers or from
Mhm.
one of the clam buyers. And we did some spawner sanctuaries that were,
Mhm.
and those spawner sanctuaries were closed to harvesting, so they could work, but it never really worked out. I believe all the clams have died by now. And I think it's still in the book that those areas are closed up in the head of West Neck, one in Compton Creek, one in
Mhm.
Banana Creek. That can all get erased.
Right.
A couple little just tidying up kind of things that need to be done.
Okay.
So it makes sense to me if we could do this harvester's permit or / shellfish commercial permit and fix the things in the town code all at once.
Yeah, right.
So the public hearing, it can all be done
Yep.
all at once just to make it simpler. So I think the next step would be if we as a group could get together with you and maybe make some kind of a draft and see what we have to do, or
No, I would welcome that. I think that's a good idea.
I think that would be the next step. So.
I think what we should
and
do
then-
to set the agenda for that is, we'll put together any concerns we might have that would need to be talked about, and you guys put yours together. And
Right, and then we can
Discuss
come
it.
up with a draft for the changes
Yeah.
and for the new license. And then you can set your public hearing and
Yeah.
and
Get
we
it
can
done.
move it forward and hopefully maybe by the summertime, get it done for once and for all. Because we've been, we've been thrashing it at it, but we're such an unorganized, we-
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
just, it's.
exactly.
We'll talk around the back of the pickup truck for
Oh.
years about stuff, and it's just hard to implement
Yep.
something like
I
this.
have
So
a more general question for you, just similar, it's topic adjacent, which is, do you think we issue too many shellfish permits in general, just sort of, are there too many amateurs out there?
no, no,
I mean, you
because
have a sense of it, I think.
but because that's like apples and oranges with what we want with the commercial.
Oh, yeah.
What I
But
do see a lot of is out of towners coming in, it's mainly from transient anchors.
Yes,
yeah,
They
we
come
do.
in and they-
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
the-
poke around, playing with
The
it.
people on sailboats from
That's
Connecticut
more
take a
than
lot of our
most
clams,
fish.
but
Yeah.
that's
More
not,
important to stop
Yeah.
that guy,
Not-
crashing into somebody. that-
Right, and it was not impacting the fishery, is what I'm sort of trying to get at.
Not recreational.
not really.
Right,
no.
that's what I was hoping.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other issue quickly, not taking too much time, is Deering Harbor.
yep,
It's a special conditional area, meaning that it's closed to harvesting during the summer months because of the potential of bad water quality, obviously, because it's so busy over there.
Mhm.
It had, the DEC gave it what they called a special conditional area.
Mhm.
And for a few years, it was open in the winter from November something through April. Their special conditions were that the Heights Sewer Plant had to check in with the town. There's a special telephone hotline that was set up. Before you go harvesting, you call into the hotline to see if the area is open or if it's closed. And this year, it didn't open at all. The DEC told me it was because of staffing issues, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to open it. Last year it opened, but it opened later. I was told that there was water quality issues later in the fall that they didn't like. And they didn't get it open right away. And again, they gave me the staffing issue nonsense.
Just real quick on that note, I believe Peter Gilbert spoke that wasn't the case about the
Mhm.
water quality.
Mhm.
Yes,
Right.
that's-
There also is a requirement by the town to keep this going, to bring samples to their lab or whatever. I
Mhm.
don't know the exact details of that. So anyway, for next year, it's too late this year,
Yeah.
but for next year, I would like to see the Bay Constables or whoever should be in charge of getting those samples, if that's what's
Mhm.
needed, to the
Mhm.
lab and.
Yeah,
following
Jerry, I
up
can
with the
comment on
DEP.
that if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so the staffing issue was with the DEC's in-house staff. We were ready, willing, and able to provide and take the water samples. They didn't have the staff to test the samples. So it wasn't on our Bay Constable's part, it was on the DEC part and their staffing concerns, not town staffing concerns.
What about sending the samples to like, does Cornell have that capability?
Can you kind of put the
Yeah.
mic in between?
Yeah, that-
Yeah, because
Yep.
not everyone can hear you.
Sorry.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
could
no.
we bypass, I hate to use the word. the
Yeah,
DEC,
I don't know.
but-
Yeah,
Not-
but that
not-
might be the idea.
Not all, there's only so many labs that can do
Can do this.
the water quality for shellfishing areas. You'd have to talk to the shellfish department at DC about. those
At
details.
Cornell, maybe, yeah.
BJ
So-
Peters had many conversations with him. Pete Vielbeck can hone this in a little bit more for us, but it was a staffing issue and cutbacks at the state level that prevented the testing to authorize the waters to be open.
All right. Maybe I'll chat
That's,
with Pete.
yeah, that's what they tell you.
Yeah.
So that's something we
So-
need to address as a town.
Yeah, because if we can do more to make it happen.
How much do you harvest in Deering Harbor? Is it something you know,
Oh, well,
based on the scallops or? is it
We would be
whatever?
clamming there today if
Okay.
it was open.
Yeah.
So is it the whole harbor or just Gardner's Creek?
Well, it's hard to explain the lines, but it's from the corner of the yacht club pier across to where the culvert is. Everything south of that opens up.
Mhm.
There's a triangle north of that's closed. So you get to the Greenport side and then a strip down the beach all the way to like Scudder's Cottages, if you know where that is.
Yep.
Because of the sewer plant
Yeah,
outflow.
yeah.
It's, I'd have to show you on,
Yeah,
on a
okay.
map. But anyway, it's anything that can be open should be open.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's also a very popular, right by Second,
Recreation as well.
right by Second Bridge is a
Yes.
very popular place
Yeah.
for people to go
Yeah.
dig a few clams.
Yeah.
Clams and oysters grow tremendous.
Yeah, the
there.
oyster
They-
used to do well back there.
They
Yeah.
grow faster there than anywhere else on the island for some reason. It's
Goes
because
like
of the,
East Pool.
well, it's that or the way the water is compressed
Mm,
going through the bridge and there's a flow, a
Almost
tidal
like a
flow.
natural upwelling.
Yeah.
And it's a productive kind of little corner there. And, there's scallops to catch there right now.
Mhm.
And only the gulls are allowed to get them. So
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have that in
Right.
the winter.
All right.
So-
So that's something
so-
we'll see, we'll set up a meeting with the DEC.
Yeah.
To find out
Yeah.
how, and that we'll do it now, so we have plenty of time to.
Because it's going to take time.
How it's
That's,
gonna work, yeah.
That's the gist of it, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, the only other things real short is the moorings. We know that's a subject you guys are all discussing.
Mhm.
The baymen really feel that there's, too many. We're losing a lot of bay bottom. And every week there's more moorings going in. Some of them are taking old spots, some are not. Wondering if maybe there's a way to stop new mooring locations from going in to kind of put the brakes on things until you figure out what is where and all that, because we know that you're,
I think, Tom, we're trying to get an overall feel for how many moorings there are, how many are used, how many people want them.
yeah,
We're trying to, get the
Yeah.
whole-
if that could be
whole
kept in
picture.
mind at the same time, because
Oh,
we're
yeah.
real worried about losing our bay bottom
No,
access.
absolutely. John, last time John was here, he said, it's just in my head now. It's,
Yeah,
front of mind, which is Shelter Island doesn't need to become a marina.
yeah,
Like, it's just, we just have to look at it that way. It's just.
yeah, yeah.
And
And we
have gone
appreciate
there
that the
before.
town's actually starting to look at that now,
Yeah,
because that's real important.
just because we have the room, do we need to use it all for that? No.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. The last thing was the oyster reef, and I think we want to hear
Yeah,
from
yes.
them first.
here
so that we
also.
can have
Kate, come on up.
some input
Uh,
from them, yeah.
Yeah.
For
Thank you
those that
very
don't
much.
know,
Yeah.
Kate Rossi Snook, and was here with the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they made a presentation to us. But I wanted just get just a recap. So while the Baymen are here, because in case they have any concerns, rather get it now than after the fact.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds good.
so just a quick recap of. what we're looking to do,
Yeah, so,
or why we're looking to do it.
I'd always wanted to start an aquaculture program here on the island. I worked for 6 years at the East Hampton Town hatchery manager, and kind of base it off their program. It's for reseeding, enhancement of the natural stocks, and, habitat and all that. So we can allow the Baymen to keep harvesting. That's really the idea. And I wasn't really sure how to do it by myself. So that's when I started having conversations with Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they already have their Back to the Bays program. It's like super established. They already have the permits and all of that. So the idea is that I would be working with Cornell to kind of create a Shelter Island division of their Back to the Bays program. And we were going to start with a shell recycling program with the restaurants. Sylvester Manor has already given me permission to cure the shells on one of their back fields. And then also use remote setting. So putting the shells in a tank, pumping some filtered bay water in, putting oyster larvae that are just about ready to set in there. And you create the spat on shell that as they grow, you create the reef structures, and then planting those spat on shell in an ideal area to create a oyster reef. And that's kind of really the first steps, and we'll see, how we can allow that program to grow. But it made me happy to hear that where I was hoping to do the oyster reef, you would also thought was a really good spot for an oyster reef. So that felt really encouraging that we were on the same page. But
Kate, the initial discussion was the first part, it's a step program, I guess, is you need a tank and you need electricity.
right, for the
And
remote
so we're trying to
setting.
think of where we could do it. So Gordon's here with Gordon's the chairman of the Community Preservation Fund. And Gordon, we talked about possibly down at Grace's Lane. It's CPF property, but the end of the road is not CPF property. So there's a possibility we could do something there. So the question would be, is this considered farming that we could do it on CPF land? Would we have to be specific when we purchase the land?
Okay.
Mhm.
Come up to the mic.
You want a little bit more
Gordon, can-
information?
Gordon,
Mike.
Gordon.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure. Yeah. So the remote setting tank is typically, we have some wiggle room on the dimensions, but it's typically 8-foot diameter, maybe 4 feet high. And we'll really just have it up and running for a couple months. We'll do a couple rounds of setting the oysters on the shells, and then we'll roll it away. So I don't feel like it really qualifies as like development because it's not a permanent installation. But yeah, we need access to electricity for aerating the water and maintaining an ideal temperature.
Gordon?
Gordon, you
need
need
you
to
come
get
up
the
and
mic.
join us?
Because there's a lot of people on Zoom.
Not prepared for this, but I guess I can always manage it to talk about this. I thought the discussion where you left off was that since there was so much town land there, I thought that you were putting it down where there was existing electricity. That's what I thought.
Well, we can, that's what I'm saying, on the end of the road.
Right.
But I'm just thinking, while we're talking about that, could we have put it on CPF,
Well, I think this is one of the things it's a good question because that's one of the things that we're trying to get Fred Thiel, to get that advisory committee together. And would be a good question
Mhm.
when you meet on a quarterly basis to
Right.
determine, because it doesn't just affect our town, it affects the other 5 East End towns. So it would be a good question to put forward. I can certainly put that forward and see what people
Mhm.
think about that. I don't know the equipment, but there is no electric there right now.
Yeah, there is.
No. There's no electric in, there's no, we moved the electric because that was with the police boat. So it moved down to town land.
That's what I'm saying. So there is a lot.
Yeah, right. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's no
Right,
electric
right.
on CPF.
Right,
That's
right.
what I meant to say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
but I was certainly, I think it's a great program, and I think it, even for getting CPF, I don't see a downside for what you're trying to create, and as long as the Baymen are in favor of it, why shouldn't we do something positive like that?
Gordon, just real quick, the land you recently bought within the last few years, by Congdon Creek.
Yep.
Is that county in town or just town?
That's town.
Okay.
There was
Town.
no-
So that might be another one. Maybe we can ask Fred about. You know.
Okay,
Okay.
I think these are good questions. That's why I'm really anxious to see
Yeah.
Fred initiate this rather than
Yes.
how I feel or someone else feels. This way we get a real
Yep.
position on it. But it would be interesting. Do you have any pictures of what that looks like? Those tanking, that tanking,
Not on the.
no, I mean.
Yeah,
some
yeah,
guys-
we had a presentation, so we can definitely,
Right.
We did.
yeah,
All right,
weeks
I'll
ago,
take another
yeah.
look at it. Good, thank you.
okay.
Was there anything
Okay.
else?
You guys have any
Yeah, do you
questions
guys
or any
have
thoughts?
Questions?
John?
What my major concern was that, and I'm in favor of doing this. I know the benefits of it. And we actually did a similar thing years ago, where we brought our shells to Cornell. They set them there for us and we put them at the head of the harbor. And a few oysters grew. It never really perpetuated itself because that was still during the brown tide years. But it works. My main concern was that if a reef area or an area is established, that it just doesn't take away from public property, that it doesn't close off an area that limits the baymen for commercial uses and other recreational uses to anybody. Even I know this is small scale, but things grow. So that, for example, you couldn't put a crab pot there or
Mhm.
or whatever. I'm all about keeping the public domain public and public access.
Mhm.
And the other was funding. We have some monies that we use every year to plant shell
Right.
stock that we get from
Right.
Cornell mostly. And I'd like to see that remain the way it is and that program continue and even expand a little bit.
We upped that
That
from
this be,
75 to
this be a
100 to
separate,
10,000 this year. Yeah.
yeah, that this be a separate
Right.
thing. That's my main concern in that. And whatever,
Okay, good.
that's all.
All right.
Yeah, we talked about it being separate, that the seating that's already been going on for so many years will continue. And this will just be another thing that we do, separate thing. Yeah.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, no, we're, like I said, it's not a bad idea at all. We brought this to previous supervisors as well, that we want to do something in-house. Is it maybe better that this goes all with Sylvester Manor? That way there's an educational aspect to it. Maybe they are equipped to deal with the spat tanks. I don't know, just asking.
Oh, I
you know,
mean, in the
maybe-
creek?
Well, yeah, they've got a creek, they've got the educational program,
That's like,
then it's not town property either.
we would love to see that. And
That
they're really
might be
like,
an
they
option.
definitely want
Great
that,
idea.
especially with the education stuff and like
Mhm.
the camps and stuff. The problem is the current conditions of the creek.
Right.
And
Right.
it gets tricky with DEC and like following their permit requirements for
Just
doing
with
this
the
kind of
conversation we
project.
had earlier that we have.
Yeah,
spoke to them, so-
It's right. Yeah, I was actually
Yeah.
gonna comment on that just
Yeah.
from a previous job I had with water quality testing, like DEC is incredible, like have the conversation, like try, but I had also previously tried having a conversation with them about like, well, okay, well, because I was doing water testing, it's like, what if I did it? And then we would have more for out in Montauk and stuff. And they're like, no. It's like, okay, what if I bring the samples to you? They're like, no. The only thing that might work, like, just because I would bring samples to Stony Brook, Southampton for harmful algal bloom testing, and DEC uses their numbers, like that might work.
Mhm.
So propose that. I don't know if they use Cornell data or if they, I don't know, that I don't know, but
I mean, I think it's something we'd have to get Fred Thiel involved with and.
yeah, that'll definitely help.
Colombo and, you know.
Yeah, or
not just
Bridget
Cohen- not
Fleming
just
too.
Cohen also.
Yeah.
Well,
mhm.
Bridget's more county. It would be more, it would be the state really.
You know,
you know.
Fair, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Strong voice with water quality stuff at least, but yeah. So
Okay. All right. You got
Okay.
any guys in there, Steve?
What's that?
I know you know a guy
No,
everywhere.
You were just saying their names.
Okay.
Give them a call.
All right.
good?
Yeah.
No other questions? Good?
Yep.
Okay.
John Kerr?
Yes, for years, I grew oysters at Camp Winnipeg, and I just want to suggest that is another possible place for you. You've got water, you've got power right on the dock there, and lots of room. And I was fairly successful. About 10 years, I grew oysters there. So just throwing it out there.
Good.
That's a big tank, though.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
thanks.
that there's room for that tank.
Well, that's good. That's good to know, John. We'll touch all bases. Okay. All right.
Jerry, Christina just opens that share up for me for a second. I'll just share that map that John was referring to earlier, so you can see visually what he was talking about. So John, if you want to get back to the mic, if you want to speak to this, you can. But basically, the red is always uncertified. And we were providing samples to the DEC, and I believe we were actually driving them up there too, similar to what the last speaker had said. But that would open up this green area out of season for conditional shellfish harvesting.
Just so everybody knows, that's the road there is Winthrop Road at Second Bridge and Gardner's Creek in the
Right.
bottom.
Right. So the line, the red green line is from the corner of the bulkhead at the yacht club
Mhm.
over to just north of the culvert at I don't know what the real name of that creek is. I just
Third bridge.
Third Bridge. It's the creek by where Meg Picozzi used to live. That's
Mhm.
all I know.
Mhm.
And everything south of that, with the exception of Chase Creek but including all of Gardner's Creek, which is underneath Second Bridge and all around in between Sylvester Manor and down there.
So John, the red is always uncertified?
Correct.
Because of the plant.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's really nothing wrong with the water there. It's just because of the sewer plant. It used to be different lines,
Mhm.
and what I was told, the EPA came in and did a dye study of the tide flows,
Mhm.
and that's when things changed. It used to be more of a triangle. I think the line went from the corner of the yacht, the line went from Cheekwood Point, which is west of the yacht club, which is that first house.
Yeah.
And because we used to be able to clam in the wintertime, just north of what the yacht club calls the North Pier, there's a flat there, which is very productive. And we used to be able to work there in the wintertime. You could even scallop there. Because the line went on an angle over to somewhere in Greenport, maybe the breakwater or the mouth of Sterling Creek or somewhere over there. And it formed a triangle. And it used to be red all in front of Greenport, I believe, and all along south of the ferry where there's oysters growing now. So when this change was made, then that became open, which was and I kind of had it out with one of the guys at the DEC about it at the time, because mysteriously, when this rich guy wanted to play with oysters, he got the water in front of his house
Right.
open, and we got ours changed.
Yeah.
And I thought that was suspicious, but
Mhm.
that was whatever. But anyway, that's how that.
He knew more people than you.
It was something
Yeah.
like that. So that's that.
Okay. All right. So Stephen, we got a couple of tasks to do on that end.
Yeah, what times of day work
Closer
for you
to the
guys?
microphone.
I'll leave you my email.
Okay,
Yeah, that's probably the best.
and we'll set it up in the next week or two, definitely. We'll meet up, we'll go over, and then we'll bring you back to a work session so you can present the amendments that we're gonna propose, okay?
Do we want to sort of, when are we going to finalize the location for the oysters? Or are we, or?
Well, no, I think that's up to Kate's got to,
Hey, where,
us,
where are we at in terms of our steps to finalizing the location? I just don't want this to hang.
Yeah,
what's the time frame really?
Yeah.
I'm having a phone conversation with Kim Barber, my colleague, again, Thursday afternoon. We've kind of been missing each other the last couple of weeks, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, I mean, we wouldn't need the setting tank until closer to June, yeah. So we have a little bit of time to figure it out, and then we don't plant the oysters until after they've grown a little bit, so. And obviously, like all the work I do is driven by like supporting Bayman, so I wouldn't want anything restricted. That would be opposite
so
of what I'm
just-
trying to do.
Contact information.
So just so we understand, what's being proposed, are you just looking for our approval or are you looking for funds?
I mean. I mean, funds would be awesome. No, I mean, approval from you guys and the community. And then, but that, yes.
And then going
ideally-
forward, just like we do with the reseeding, at budget time, maybe we could put money in.
Yeah, and then, well, that's kind of why I was hoping
Yeah.
to meet with the water quality people, because that's definitely a valid water
Right.
quality improvement money
Yeah.
opportunity. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Getting back to the legislative stuff. Water, WMAC,
Wendy?
Yeah.
how do they factor into reviewing this?
The oysters themselves or the
Not
whole
the
Bayman
oyster,
thing?
The whole Bayman
the
thing,
whole
the
Bayman thing.
shellfishing permits and things like that.
That's a good question. We have that sort of the special meeting tomorrow evening. Why don't I
Mhm.
just bring that up there? Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Okay, next on the agenda, I have Pilots Association / Neighbors of Conowicka's Airfield. This came up. Jamie, I don't really remember what the origin was. We talked about it, I think in December. Some of the pilots were before us, talk about the possible use of a new hangar and, different things going on. It might have had to do with when Gordon, when we were notified by the county that we had to shift the landing strip a little bit. But the intention was to bring the Pilots Association in, to bring the neighbors that might have questions about it. There's no specific complaints or anything going on. We just really would like to get it, let the public know, what we're doing at the airfield, what you guys see happening in the future there. I know when Jim Colligan and I went to, inspect the hangars, you had mentioned, trying to get some younger kids involved and, doing a few things. So PJ, Jamie, Jim Pugh's on Zoom. If you guys want to come up and just give us a little bit of an overview of, what's going on, what, you see happening, what you would like to happen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie Cogan. This is PJ Lemansky.
Hi.
We're members of the Pilots Association and we're part of the maintenance crew, in our agreement to maintain the field for the town. So, there's been some interest in us, maybe expanding the hangars down there. We don't really have a specific plan yet of what kind of hangar or an extension of what we have or so on and so forth to generate more income for the Pilots Association so we can maintain the field better. In doing that, one of the key things that the Pilots Association is working on, and this is what we try to keep in the forefront, is the ability to 24-hour medvac. And, I've had conversations with Brian Dolger about, aviation programs for the girls and boys in the high school. And that's what we wanted. That's what we want to do. If we do expand, we want to be able to have room so that we can do, some aviation related things with the kids in the school. It's a great field and it's kind of getting overlooked, and there's great programs provided by the EAA, which is the Experimental Aircraft Association, and AOPA, which is the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. They have names like Young Eagles and Early Flyers, stuff like that. And these programs are set up and we can access them, to speak. And when I first spoke to Brian, it was interesting. He thought just the boys. I said, no, the girls. I said, there's a huge,
Right.
Women in aviation all the way back to World War II and beforehand. So These are great fields, and that's really what we're working on. And there was some interest in, there's been some interest and some pressure, I guess, on us, because the East Hampton situation, and people want to come here, and we have outside tie downs for them, but I don't have hangars for them.
Jamie, how many members do you have and how many planes you keep there?
Well, we have 5 hangars. I'll start with that, and 5 planes in those hangars, and then we have an additional 6 or 7 planes that tie down outside that are seasonal,
Mhm.
and almost all of them are residents or transients, that live here in the summer
Mhm.
and go back in the winter.
And how does it work if if somebody wants the land? They have to notify somebody or?
Yeah, they call the Pilots Association, or it's noted on it's called a NOTAM or something, where it's noted on the sectional map and stuff, where to call.
If I could amplify that a bit, Jamie, if it's okay.
Sure.
Oh, I didn't realize Jim was here.
Jamie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was appointed by Jim Doherty, and I'm still handling the clearance for pilots. And I think the understanding is that they call me to get approval. And I check their backgrounds and soft field, short field experience. And nicely, we want to encourage them to use the airfield, but with a large degree of respect. So I gently try to scare them, because the airfield is short and it's it's not for the faint of heart or a heavy aircraft. But anyway, we do have a Facebook page, just so you know, Clinnawickus Airfield, if you want to visit. There's an about section that gives the operating limitations and instructions for pilots. We have posted videos showing takeoffs and landings. We have some videos taken from the cockpit, showing aircraft approaching the airfield. And our goal really, as Jamie has said, is to make this as safe and accessible as possible to qualified pilots. That said, the airfield is characterized by the FAA as private, which means pilots aren't supposed to just come in and land without permission. They need to have permission. Now, I don't know if you folks, as things are changing a little bit, if you want to re-empower me or empower me and Jamie to yay or nay pilots coming in, but basically I get a number of calls for rotary aircraft, for helicopters. And of course, we don't allow that. And I don't know that any helicopters have landed there that we don't, inadvertently, except for medevac. And pilots come in, they ask about landing twin engines. We don't generally allow that, propeller driven. In any event, we do try to keep this as safe as possible. And we do have a contract with the town, which is public information. And I think our goal and operation history is contained on the historical sign there, that we want to maintain the airfield, promote general aviation, and make the field accessible. And of course, it's public with regard to people going on the field, and numerous people walk their dogs through there. And we encourage anyone that has a concern or wants to know anything to just contact us or stop by the field. And I think all of us are more than happy to communicate and talk and chat with people, whether they want to fly or not. And that said, we have members, the members of the Pilot Association. I think we've contributed to the association and are so-called official members. I think we have about 25 now. But of those, there are probably 10 primary members. And of those, there are only 5 of us or 6 of us who keep aircraft there regularly. So that's pretty much the status of it.
Well, I have a sort of a general question. What do you guys think the impact of the changes at East Hampton will have on us?
Well, we don't know. We've gotten some people that have shown up, that want to, become, that want to fly in and out of our field and so on and so forth, which is, fine. Flying's fine. I don't know, whether the people in East Hampton know what's going on. You know what I mean? So, obviously we can't, accept anyway, but as far as some light planes and some people that are associated with Shelter Island and East Hampton, you know, are welcome to take summer tie downs and stuff like that, which is, you know, normal
charge?
behavior. We do. It's $35 a month to tie down. But as far as our association goes, the main thing that we work on is education for the school kids we're working on, and to improve our medvac capacity. We have a great spot there where we have been medvac, and we have a 10,000 gallon tank in the ground, and we're able to pull the attack pumper up, which is, you know, mandatory. That's law. So with 2,000 gallons there and 10,000 there's 12,000 gallons of tank, which probably, you know, we plan on it giving us enough time to run straight down Congdon Road and draft, which is what we do. We don't use any fertilizer there, and all maintenance, we use no chemicals whatsoever. There's two pristine freshwater ponds at the north and south end of the strip. It's 3 degrees and 210 degrees south. And, you know, most of you guys know them as Lily Pond, Matt Pond, or Ice Skating Pond, or whatever you guys, you know, think, but that's where we are. So, you know, I guess ideally we'd like to have 24-hour access for medvac, you know, for our seniors. I guess I'm one too now, but so, but we do have an aviation light group in our main chief's car, which is, you know, has special lighting on it now, and it lights up and it's very visible from the air. But, you know, when we have we have one of the old antennas from the center of town, since we all upgraded in the firehouse, so we're able to put up another windsock. It hasn't happened yet, but we have that antenna down there laying on the ground. And, you know, of course, we maintain the field, look after the field, keep it neat as we can, and we try to take care of our neighbors and keep our neighbors included. You know, we trim and cut back everything because everything keeps growing on Shelter Island. I split wood, I deliver it to the neighbors that are around, you know, around the perimeter of the field, those that are wood burners and stuff like that. So, you know, that's what we do. And, you know, we have a little area where you can sit down there and have a sandwich or walk your dog, and pretty quiet, pristine place.
So Jamie, I would ask, you know, you and Jim, you know, because of the uncertainty of East Hampton Airport,
Right.
and we had an inquiry about somebody putting a barge off of the island and landing helicopters on it.
Right.
So we don't know what's going to happen. So do we need to maybe define how many planes we're going to allow, you know, to here? And
Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. First of all, there is no helicopter operations allowed at the field, and that was passed by the town board many
Yes.
years ago. And we have no helicopter options there, except for the Black Hawks and except for medvac.
Right.
Okay. They would be the only two. And hopefully we never need the Black Hawks, you know, that would be like a catastrophic disaster. I mean, if we needed them.
Right.
So that's great. And the ability to medvac is phenomenal, and we can get, you know, be in Stony Brook in like 45
Right.
minutes, you know, those
But I'm
guys.
thinking more, you know,
Plane.
more
As far
planes.
as the
Because we're
field
also,
itself,
excuse me, we're also thinking about seaplanes. That
Right.
might be, you know, that has nothing to do with you, but we see, you know, if
Right.
this happens at East Hampton, the people are going to try, you know, people with money are going to, how can I get out there fast? You know?
right. Well, the field itself dictates what kind of plane can really fly in there. You know, when we only have, you know, 1,500 feet grass strip. So, you know, it has to be a light plane, you know, it has to be most likely single engine. And so, you know, you're not going to have, although there's been some real talented guys that came to, you know, Frank's Field, Susan's Field years ago, that, you know, flew some twins in for our fly-ins and flew amphibious seaplanes in. In other words, they have wheels that come out of the pontoons. But other than that, we haven't seen those guys in years and years and years. So I don't think it's an issue. As far as, you know, commercial seaplane operations out there in the bay, that's out of our jurisdiction.
Right.
We don't really have any control over it.
Mhm.
And as far as a helipad, I don't know quite what to tell you about the helipad or how someone would access the helipad to bring the people in and out. So that's a whole nother different thing.
Well, I would just have a request. If you and Jim, and you start to get more and more requests from people that you think are displaced from East Hampton,
Right,
you know, that are now wanting to use Shelter Island on a semi-permanent basis.
right.
I was wondering if the town board couldn't be let in, you know, be told that, hey, we're getting more and more of, these kind of requests, we'll.
Well, we only
That-
have so, we only have so many tie downs.
Right.
Could I
You know,
comment?
we only have,
We have about 5 tie downs.
And so
Five
that
times.
maxes you out.
Could I comment?
But if they want to come in, touch down, let off their people and leave, that could become a traffic, no?
no, because you're
No?
not, you know, in order to let off several people like that, you need a substantial type
Yeah,
plane. You know,
double
once
people,
again,
yeah.
our field limits the
Right.
amount of people that, they're basic, there's nothing over more than really a 4-passenger.
Yeah, the
Right.
largest plane that
But
could land there would be 4
Yeah.
passengers and a pilot. So-
Right, that's what I'm thinking, like, if there's someone, is comfortable enough to travel in that way,
I think If
to,
there was, there wouldn't be many people doing it. It would
okay.
be very few.
But if it does start to pick up, if I'm.
Well, you have-
Like
There's some
Mrs.
things that
Shaw.
are being overlooked in that whole discussion, first of all, Suffolk County or Gabretzky Airport in West Hampton Beach. It's actually one of the largest airports in the tri-state area. People don't even, it's larger than Kenny and LaGuardia. There's also Montauk and there's Mattituck, and there's still an airport in Orient.
And they don't want them.
Well, I-
They've already signed kind of.
I don't know whether they want them or don't want them. I mean, the traffic that if you go to East Hampton Airport and look at the traffic that's going in and out of there on a Sunday afternoon, let's say going back to and from New York, it's nowhere even close to what, it's even happening here on Shelter Island. I mean, this is an airfield. It's not an airport.
Yeah, yeah.
It's limited to daylight hours,
Yeah.
and it's limited to, light aircraft, light
Yeah.
sport aircraft.
And we have no like foul weather approach or departure.
Right.
Right.
So if the weather.
Could I give an observation?
Standards.
Yes,
Go ahead, Jim.
The barometer indicates to me, and I've looked at this rather carefully. I've spoke with people at East Hampton. I think what's going to happen is when East Hampton reopens, it's going to be run much like Clinnawickus. In fact, I've been approached by a number of people from East Hampton, through East Hampton, and other airports about how we operate because they really seem to want to emulate us. And I think given the restrictions that are going on in East Hampton, I personally don't believe we're going to have an influx of aircraft at all. I think some of the pilots at East Hampton are nervous that they're not going to have a place to put their aircraft. And that's generated some blips on the radar. But, we haven't gotten increased traffic. And I think all this thing is going to settle down. It's going to be less traffic, in fact. Hopefully, well, what they want is less traffic in and out of East Hampton. And I think that's going to happen. I think that has to happen, or the airport at East Hampton won't be operational. But that's a sense I get. I don't think we're going to have a problem from influx from East Hampton. And also, just FYI, we have a weather station at the airfield now that you can log in through the Weather Underground or Wunderground, WUNDERGROUND. You get the app. And if anybody wants to email, I'll give you if you can't bring it right up, I'll give you the ID code for it so you can link to what's going on at the airfield, weather, wind-wise, temperature, precipitation, and the like, which I found very useful as far as wind direction and which way we're going to take off and land and all of that, as opposed to the windsock, which is much less accurate.
Mhm. Good. Okay. Hey, Hoot,
Any more questions?
you want any input on the history or anything you want to talk about the airfield? I know you and Frank were cronies.
No, I don't, there's nothing I can
Come up,
add.
come
Mike.
up.
Only thing I can add is it goes back to pre-World War II that they've been coming in and out of there. There's, except the couple of months during the summer, you'd be lucky if you have 1 or 2 airplanes a week
Mhm.
that go in and out of there. So it's not like people have to get all worried about we're going to have this big influx. And if you had influx from south side or east Hampton, you could put restrictions on it. But you wouldn't want to do that unless you have a problem. You
Right.
don't want to start restricting
Right.
things just for the case of restricting them. So, I think it's run well. There's never a problem with it. There's a couple of guys that come in and out quite often. There's that one V-tail Bonanza, and he comes in there all the time and has a house on the island.
Mhm.
He's a little bit louder, than most of the other ones, but most of them, when they take off, they go right over my house.
Mhm.
So and it's not a problem.
Okay,
It's good.
all right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Sue, you want to add anything? No, you good? Okay, John Kerr?
Hello, I queried several landowners around the airport. And we have some real concerns about operation and behavior of pilots.
Hey, Penny, okay, go ahead.
And what we've discovered is that the main thing that people are bringing up when I talk to them about this is that the noise. And I know who you just said that it's not very loud where you are, but if you're underneath the end of the runway, it's exceedingly loud, especially in the summertime when the planes don't have the same lift they do when the air is colder. And they're right over the trees. And so for most of the pilots and planes, they're low horsepower, which has been traditionally there. That's wonderful. But, you know, there's one pilot, Stuart, he's a great guy. I've nothing against him, but his plane is bigger, heavier, more powerful, and noisier. And it's really disruptive because he comes so fast, all of a sudden he's on you and the decibel limit just goes way up. And I don't want to think about limiting his use, but people really need to know that this is really disturbing. And I'm not the only one complaining. I've got other people on both ends of the airport who have been disturbed by this, the noise. So that is an issue. We have some other concerns though. And Jamie, if you're still there, the fire department, several years ago, we had that one plane that made a hard landing takeoff and ended up with an fuel spill. And we were wondering what kind of fire suppression foam does the fire department have to be able to put out an aviation fire? Is Jamie there?
He's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, I'm coming up. That's a good question, John, and that's something that's taken place in our fire service. We used to have the old time foam that's outlawed, and the commissioner has been very good where we got rid of all that. And we use what's called, I think it's called Class A foam now. It's pretty much like an emulsification of like Dawn soap that you wash the ducks
Yeah.
with. Yeah,
Yeah.
it works great. And that's what we have, and we have it on board, and we don't have any of that other foam that was in the press and in the newspaper and cancer causing and stuff like that. And we also use that not just there. We use it on our roads and highways and wherever there's some type of MBA that has, a fuel spill or oil spill or something like that, which we've had in other places on Shelter Island, in our fire service. So, yeah, we keep that in mind too. And we have the right stuff.
So Jamie,
Sure.
to John's concern about the noise,
Right.
and I guess it's a new pilot with a newer plane. Is
Oh,
that
no, I
something
think he's
you're gonna-
talking about the plane who mentioned and so on and so forth. I'll talk to Stuart and I'll have him, maybe we can make some, abatement, like a sharper climb and a
Well,
turn to the.
Stuart does his
east-
best.
east.
Stuart does his best for the most part, but sometimes he forgets. I've talked to him personally, and he tries to veer off right or left, or actually aim down between my house and Al Kilb's house, and that's better. But it is specifically terribly bad in the summertime when they're lower, and he's not able to gain the altitude he needs to be able to keep it quieter. So that's a real issue I have with him. And if I have a complaint, I give him, I talk to him, I give him a thumbs up and a good takeoff and a good landing every time he makes one, just so he knows that I'm here and that I'm watching out for them, which leads me to another point. And this is where the use of transponders, because we had so much trouble and I was bothering Jim Pugh oftentimes with a phone call, and he was requesting me to get a photograph of the plane, and it's very difficult to get a photograph of the plane when it's right over your head, 50 or 100 feet up. I got an app on my phone which allows me to look at radar, but the planes need to have transponders on in order for me to track them. And I'm not trying to do this to be an evil prying neighbor. I'm doing this to identify who the people are and be able to make sure that they're the people that should be there. And my only concern about that is that there are so many pilots that fly over the island all year round and just take a swoop down, and they come down, if they don't touch down, they come down low as if they are going to land and then take off again. And they roar up over our house and take a circle around, and they'll do it again. They're not technically touching down, but they're utilizing the space of the airfield as a potential target or whatever for practice. I'm not quite sure, but that's an issue. So without the transponder, I can't track them and I don't know who they are. And I'll talk to Jim about it. This guy, I've sent him videos of the track. These things, they're coming from up island somewhere and they just do a flyby. So that's an issue or a concern. Another concern. Go
John,
ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
I speak, John and I are
Want me to
pretty
answer?
close.
Oh, go ahead,
Well,
Jim.
John Kerr and I are in pretty close contact on this usually. And if we can identify the aircraft, I'll look it up on the FAA registry and call the pilot or contact the pilot. And I ask them, not to do repeated takeoffs and landings. We have little control, the pilots nor the town has little control over what goes on in the air as long as they don't touch down. As far as I'm concerned, if they touch down without permission, then that's a problem. We can prohibit them. If we let them in just if I approve, let's say that they want to come in and visit for a weekend or an afternoon, I let them come in. If I get a complaint from John with them, I ask them if they would consider joining the association. And they do, and then I give them the instructions about avoiding John's property, but it requires a personal conversation. And I'm very happy to do that, and I do that pretty regularly. And I hope, John, things have gotten better over the years. We did have a pilot that made repeated landings to a full stop and then takeoffs, but I spoke with him. I think he's not doing that anymore.
He hasn't been there since, so that's
Right.
good. I think he told me he sold his plane, so that was maybe changed some of
That
that.
was
there.
one, but the other one comes in about once or twice a year.
Right. Another concern is that there seems to be takeoffs and landings before 7 a.m. and that's really disruptive for people. And I just would like to make sure that that wasn't going on. It'd really be great. And
We
also,
discourage that, John.
pardon me?
We discourage early morning operations.
I understand an emergency, whatever, but when it happens and they sit at the end of the runway revving their engine repeatedly, it's like, whoa, what's going on now? So I don't know how you do that.
That's part of the run-up. That's required for a pilot to do before rolling out. At the end of the runway, you got to run up the engine, speed it up. That's just the normal part of the.
I understand that, but some of this is, I would call it excessive. Okay, if they're having a problem, they're checking oil pressure, they got to rev it up more. I don't know, maybe they shouldn't take off that time, but I'm just saying that it is disturbing when that goes on. So I'm just passing information on from multiple people. Another factor was people are concerned about is that you've maintained a runway, but you're mowing down near the pond and into the wetland area. And they were concerned, like, why isn't there a better buffer there around that wetlands? And so they thought that maybe you should cease and desist of the mowing so far into the wetlands there. That was just a suggestion that some of the neighbors have said.
Well, the wetlands changes its size depending on how much rain there's been.
Well, I'm basing this on DEC lines based on plant species, which particularly is the Phragmites, which are been mown down. So that's what I'm basing it on. And is there a horsepower limit on our membership?
Horsepower?
Yeah.
Well, there's a weight limit in the contract.
Yeah, I see that. It's 6,200 pounds. But that's pretty heavy plane.
Well, that's a twin engine Seneca, Piper
Yeah.
Seneca.
Right. Yeah. So okay.
Our aircraft are much. It's not the horsepower as much as whether they're turbocharged or not.
Right. Right.
The turbos are the ones that make the noise.
Right. And there's no maintenance of planes that go on there. Neighbors were concerned about waste oil or things like that people might just change the oil or other
No,
fluids.
there's none of that. Any oil that's changed is disposed of properly.
Okay, just double checking that there's no fuel stored there.
No.
Okay, I'll pass that on to the neighbors then. And I think that's just the transponders or the flight log. And Jim, you're the person that keeps the track flight log, or they do it? Is it
As best we can, but every pilot maintains their own log of their. And anytime that we request, I try to get copies of their logs. I mean, we don't have someone at the airfield the whole time, so we have no way of knowing. We do have trail cams that we're about to put in, that will record operations there at the airfield when there's motion, much like tracking a deer.
Right.
But it's very difficult to get an exact number. We do have approximate numbers, and we know the primary pilots, how many takeoffs and landings they do. And the logbooks have that information. And most pilots are very good about providing it.
Okay, well, that's good. I think that's everything that I had on my list of from the neighbors. I think that's it.
I got to
Okay,
tell you,
thanks, John.
folks, that visiting pilots love the airfield. We get really compliments all the time about the way it's been maintained. I mean, this is a group that's handling this now. But people have just, I think we've kind of set a standard for turf airfields in the Northeast. And I think it's quite remarkable and to be emulated. And we
Great. Thanks,
appreciate
Jim.
we appreciate all of your encouragements.
Okay, Amber had a
Yeah,
comment.
I just want to remind the public that when we're talking about things, not to use specific individuals' names. If you want to cite a behavior or as an example, that's fine, but I feel uncomfortable when a specific name gets brought up and there, it could be public shaming, it could be slander, so I just want to caution everyone from doing that, please.
PJ, did you have something?
Yeah, I
think
just,
Penny has-
Jamie quickly touched on before, but going back to if we were to seek some sort of hangar expansion, part of that, we would like to have a shop for high school students.
Oh,
I know Jamie talked about it briefly, but we didn't really go into how we would like to incorporate that into any kind of maybe adding on to our existing structure or building a standalone structure, either way. So I just thought that'd be a nice thing for the community.
Mhm.
I know if a program like that existed when I was in high school, I would have really loved it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
it'd be great to get some
Good.
younger kids involved.
Yeah.
In aviation.
Good, thanks, PJ.
All right, and so, yeah, I guess that's about it.
Thank you. Hey, Gordon, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Can you come up?
And then Penny's.
As far as the conversation of, either, fixing up the hangars or adding a new hangar, how would that be involved? What would be the process with, because it's a CPF property?
Well, I'm going to throw it back at you because here we're an advisory group.
Mhm.
We make recommendations.
But do you have a
And, oh,
plan? I mean, there should be a plan in place
There
for
is.
what's allowed there.
Well, it's allowed, I think it's 6 hangars, and I don't have the stewardship plan in
Mhm.
front of me, but we've gone down that road as far as expansion is concerned, okay? And it only spells out in the stewardship plan 6 hangars, okay? And when we've discussed this in the past, since you're leasing the property and it's town property, it really relates to the board. I mean, I could certainly get a input from the CPF committee
Mhm.
itself, is how they would feel about it, okay? But, we've sort of, since it's a leased property, we
Right.
are not even engaged with your leasing documents.
Mhm.
So, since we are talking about that, it would probably be a good idea to, when you do renew leases, it would be interesting for us to maybe take a look at it and
Mhm.
see, maybe we might have some constructive recommendations on that.
Okay,
Is that
Yeah,
helpful?
pretty much.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. And that,
Okay.
you didn't put me on a spot. You had me nervous for a second.
Anybody else want to chime in? Penny? You're on mute, Penny. You're still on mute.
It just lists the hangars, the 6 hangars, the tie downs and a windsock
Mhm.
on the stewardship plan.
So does that seem to preclude any expansion or just listing what's there?
Sort of just listing what's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Just so everybody knows, we've been trying very hard to stick to our guidelines for meetings and not open it to the public till the end. So the town attorney just reminded me of that, but I feel that, we brought this is a public information meeting that, we invited the pilots and the neighbors to come in. So rather than wait till the end of the
Jerry,
meeting when everything else is done.
I'm in on John's computer.
Yeah, go ahead, Penny.
I'm hoping I'm not getting an echo. I want to say that I am very happy with the way the pilots have interacted with us, Jim Pugh and Jamie and everyone I respect, who I know the history of the airstrip. And it's been used recreationally for many years, and it's been used, for medical emergencies, and it's important for that reason. I'm not, I am concerned about expanding its use, and I am concerned about East Hampton Airport overspill. The reason they are shutting their airport down is because of excessive noise in the neighborhood, and they've been fighting it for years. So I'm, 90% of the time, we're pretty happy with what happens here, including the noisy airplanes. They really do try to go through the side of us and not directly over our house. The little putt-putt guys are way up high when they go over. You'd hardly know they took off. So there is a difference between airplane size, and that is critical. I am concerned about if you're going to expand it to young people. I think it's great to teach young people, but it, like Jim, as you said, it's a pretty challenging strip. And so I'm concerned about potential accidents and liability and things like that. So that concerns me. I do have, wild birds in both of these ponds. There are geese and, ducks and all sorts of things, birds that they fly up because they hear the airplane and they're, so potential accident in that way. So I just caution the town about the liability as far as expanding the Pilots Association. And I'm very happy with our communication together. John didn't mention all the problems we have had. I have only contacted the local police a couple of times because of people coming and doing these touch and goes or whatever they are. And I know other neighbors have called. Not every call is from me or John, by any stretch. I just hope the town is very careful and cautious. I know the county doesn't want to allow any of it on their protected land. So I think we've got a special situation here, and I think we need to be very careful about how we handle it going into the future, because more and more people are going to think, oh, that's great. We can fly out, for the weekend and keep the city apartment, and a lot of business people and things like that. I think we have to be very careful about potential growth. So thanks for listening to me, and I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Penny. Yeah, and
you're-
just to add to that, we're very fortunate right now that we have Jim and Jamie and PJ and
Yep.
the people that are so involved in it. But you're right, we have to think about.
I
the future,
appreciate
who might be
what they
there down
do.
the road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Can I address the three things that Penny said?
Sure.
First of all, we don't allow student operations, Penny. And touch and goes, because the airfield is so short, are disallowed. We
I
don't
know.
allow that.
I
And
know,
we do
people
have
do
a,
it. I mean, there some
pardon?
to come, like John said, from up island, they come down, they go, they do it. We watch them, and then by the time we contacted somebody, they're gone. That happens every
And-
year.
And although we do have a large liability policy, our own, that the pilots pay for each year per the town mandate, we do everything we can to make sure the operations are safe.
Mhm.
And nobody gets hurt. And we do want the neighbors to be happy. And I appreciate your kind words.
Thanks.
Good.
So I'm at
All
the
right.
end of the runway. For me, it's more than liability. It's my safety. So, yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right, Jim, Jamie, thanks very much for coming down and giving us an overview. And if you can just keep in mind what BJ asked, and keep us surprised if you're getting a lot of requests from East Hampton.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're gonna go around the table now. I'll start off. We have I got from Amber Wilson, who I was gonna call new Amber, but then I'd have to call you old Amber. So I won't do that.
Benefits.
Amber gave us the insurance certificate for the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
So that's all we were waiting for
I think
for that. So that's good to go. And that's all I have. Meg?
We had comprehensive plan meeting last night. The next one is April 25th. So we were working on culture and history. We'll have new documents posted online soon for everybody to look at. Other than that, I think that was.
I went to the
that's it.
school today,
Okay.
chatted up the census expectations for the future. They're just, actually, the expectation is replacement. So we're about 180 something for a census right now, probably continue to be at one, just based on the numbers that Nurse Mary collects every year. You know, how many infants do we have? How many 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds? How many are graduating this year to be replaced by the incomings? So there doesn't seem to be a big change in terms of what we can expect from school numbers. But that being said, they emphasize, I had mentioned that I thought the trend line really over the last quite a period of time was really around 200. So it feels like we've kind of dropped below that. And the answer was that we've lost 3 large families
Right,
because they couldn't stay on the island because of housing.
right.
So housing
Mhm.
is you know, they just go hand
Right.
in hand, the school and the housing. So
And you went over there specifically for information for the comp plan.
for the comp plan, yeah, and yeah, and how, and for the,
Yeah.
just talk
Right.
about housing, you know.
Okay.
um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. Anything else?
Thank you. Nope, that's all I got.
Amber?
Yep, the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board had its first meeting on Thursday, the 23rd. We originally had put on the agenda for today for them to come in and make a presentation, kind of introduce themselves. That's been postponed till next week. So I'm not going to get into too much of the meeting itself. They will do that for us next week. West Neck Water is having a meeting at 6 p.m. on
Friday?
Yeah, 6 p.m.
Friday. Via Zoom or in person here to just go over the rate structure that the West Neck Water Board is in the process of setting to, you know, come up with a structure for going forward.
And I think, Stephen, you're ready to present the contract from Suffolk County Water or not yet?
No, I'm still not in receipt.
Okay.
I had a very good conversation with the attorney for the Suffolk County Water Authority. I made some proposed amendments. He but they were fine. So he's going to incorporate it
Good.
into the lease and then send me a conformed copy. Once I
Okay.
get that, I'll advise the
Right.
board.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, so we now have under the committee's page on the town website, we have the Community Housing Fund Advisory Board, so that's there. And Christina, I'm not seeing, oh, there it is, Board of Ethics. So that has its own webpage too. So we're, you know, as we keep
Amber,
moving
what,
forward.
how many openings, what do we have still that we're waiting for?
Oh, on everything?
Yeah, and everything.
Um,
Try to put you on the spot.
no, no, because I feel like we had a resignation.
Yeah, we did.
We had 2 from the Green Committee,
Yes,
Green
yes.
Options that
Mhm.
left. And then I think we still had, hold on, I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say each liaison can kind of weigh in on
Right.
their committees. I think mine are almost set.
I think I'm okay.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we've been
I-
doing a lot of
we
interviewing this
we
year.
have been. I think it's just the 2 on the Green Committee. Um, let's see.
Yeah, because I think Deer and Tick, we're waiting for Mashomic
Right,
to
Nature
do.
Right.
Conservancy, yeah.
Yeah, the Nature
Mhm.
to do something.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think,
all right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's it. I
Mhm.
think
That's
we
it.
filled most of them.
yeah, it's been a busy year so
Yeah.
far.
So
Um,
geothermal, I'm on it.
Anything else? You're done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Go.
Go ahead.
Just saying the geothermal, now getting WQI to look at this as a possibility for.
Want to give a brief
Somebody-
explanation?
Oh, yeah, I was sort of continuing last week's discussion, where we brought up the idea of closed loop geothermal systems being allowed again on Shelter Island. You know, all geothermal is currently banned. And there's a big push now to electrify everything possible within a house. So no more gas stoves, you know, to go to induction and
Can you explain why it was? banned?
because it's easier to use renewable sources when you're electrified.
I
So.
don't know.
what-
Why
what
was it banned?
Oh,
was a ban.
geothermal was banned because there's 2 reasons. There's 2 systems possible with geothermal. One is open loop. So you take water out, you cool or heat your house with it, and you put it back, open into the aquifer. That would never be appropriate for Shelter Island, just full stop. It just wouldn't be because you're using water, you're piercing the lens. It's just a whole bunch of bad things, possible bad things that you just wouldn't want to consider. But the closed loop systems are a different story. And that's where you're running water that has some sort of antifreeze in it through a closed loop system sufficiently underground so that it can maintain a temperature that, even though it doesn't seem, so for instance, 50 degrees in the winter, doesn't seem like you could heat a house with that, but you can. You can extract that heat to heat your house, and in the opposite, of course, in the summer. And closed loops are two. You can have horizontal closed loops. So think about a field of piping that's buried down 3 to 5 feet, or you can have vertical closed loops. And again, no vertical closed loops on Shelter Island because, right, where the aquifer, the lens is, it could be potentially a bad thing. But why not the horizontal loops? Why can't we re-examine this as a possibility? So the Water Advisory Committee is going to help me look into this as a possibility of just changing that little bit of the code. And as Meg brought up, to do it in a sensitive way, in that there will be some areas of the island where even that, it's just too close, the water table is just too close. So we won't be able to do it. So we would do it on a mapped basis of whether or not it would be allowed. But I think it's worth a while in this era of let's try to get this world to continue. So
So
we're on it.
you brought it to the attention?
The WAC
Okay.
and Peter Grant is, I think, happy to be looking at it
Okay.
for us.
Good. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, Stephen, you have anything for us?
No.
No? Okay, we'll open it up to the audience. I have notes that Stephen Jacobs and Bill Maestro want to say something. Stephen?
Bill's there twice.
Hi, I just want to flag the issue of use of CPF property. Back in the beginning of February at a CPF meeting, I set forth why it appeared to me that under the state law, particularly town law 64E9, there is a prohibition on using CPF property for anything other than passive recreational use. I had in the following week back and forth with one of the town board members on that, who indicated that she hadn't yet spoken to the town attorney about it. About 3 weeks ago, I raised it with the town attorney. Initially, it was all in the context of Clenowickus, but I noted in my note to the town attorney that it also was an issue when we're talking about oyster preservation or educational, for-profit educational programs on CPF property. And it seems to me this is something that really needs a cogent legal analysis. I appreciate that there are many good intentions here, some necessary things like water treatment, but the best of intentions don't justify a violation of the law. And I think the public is entitled to an analysis by the town attorney of what is permitted and why it's permitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Nothing, Jerry. I told Christina once I saw the agenda, I didn't really have anything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, if there's nobody else, I'm going to make a motion. We go into executive session. We have interviews for the ethics board coming up, and thanks everybody for coming. I'll make that motion. Have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.